All right. Give it about another minute or two and we'll be underway. This is, I don't know for anyone else, this is our back to school week here in the Northeast. So a lot of my kids went back to school today, which is like the joyous part of summer when the kids are actually going back to school. So I was a little remiss and actually kind of happy to help ship them off this morning. So all good stuff. All right. Couple more minutes and then we'll get underway. Two minutes. All right, got a little bit past. So what I'll do is we'll just get rolling. And today is really meant to be more of a conversation around something that's really interesting to me, which is the ghosting that we're experiencing in the market. Um, and what I wanted to talk about was a little bit from both sides and just kind of I'm just gonna the way I put this together is I could share a little bit of data around different areas that I see ghosting happening. And then we'll kind of walk in and just talk a little bit about how you guys are experiencing it. And hopefully a couple more people will join us. But I knew with the school being back and going back to session this week, at least up here, a lot of people were kind of busy or may not be working. So we'll just have a fun conversation. All right. Let Eric in. He's joining us, then we'll get underway. All right. Welcome, Eric. It's good to see you again. Hope everything's going pretty good.
Yes. Sorry, I was muted.
My headphones are dead. How's life in the city today? Is it warm there?
It's cloudy, raining.
Really? It is
Yeah.
hot and muggy up here in the Boston area. So awesome. All right. Well, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Bill Fanning. I help run the talk community and moderate the webinars, and excited to have this conversation. I think everybody's name here is one I've seen before, but if you're joining us from LinkedIn, Talk is a free TA community. Would love for you to be part of it. It's super simple to join in the QR code in the upper right-hand side of the screen. All you have to do is scan it. It'll bring you right to our page, and you can sign up. And would love to have you be part of the community. Also, if you can turn your camera on, it's great. Would love it. If you can, I understand we're all in different places, but it's great to be able to see each other as we go through the conversation and talk a little bit about ghosting and kind of what's going on in the industry. All right, get right into it. I think everybody's making it in. So here's what I put together, and we could talk a little bit about this, but what I wanted to do is kind of talk about the state of the funnel and where we actually see leaking in the funnel. And then I wanted to stop and just talk about where you guys are seeking it or seeing it happen. We'll talk a little bit about the speed problem. We'll talk a little bit about tracking as a metric. And then we'll talk about volume versus personalization. And I think that depending what industry you're in is a little bit relevant to your world, but wanted to go there. Go for a second, just talk a little bit of that. Before we jump into that, though, I just wanted to ask a quick question. And you can give a thumbs up or drop a note in the chat, however you want to. But I just wanted to stop for a minute and ask how you guys are liking the new platform and the interaction and capability. Because very happy with how it's moving forward so far. But obviously, if we can make any improvements, I'm super happy to do so. One of the huge assets of moving to the new platform is if we can quickly make changes. And so if there's anything that you like or don't like or wish you would see, you can drop it in chat. You can shoot me an email at bill@talktalent, let me know. But we're always excited to make the platform as rewarding as possible for you and everyone else in the community. So that's kind of the goal behind it. All right, so let me jump into this and we'll kind of get rolling.
I think the new platform looks great, Bill. There's definitely probably some minor tweaks, but I think it's a great start.
Good, thank you. Yeah, I've become a little bit of a tweak junkie myself, but I like making them and getting it rolling. Um, so I want to kind of set the table for what we're seeing in the market. And I pulled this data from Greenhouse. By the way, I will at the end of this, I have all of the sources of data on a slide, so I'll share that with all of you. So you're more than welcome to go look at this. But everything I'm referencing, I source, so you can go look at it. That's one of my pet peeves when I go to presentations and they present data. I always like to know where it came from, so I want to make sure I made that available for you. So and I think this is one of the general catalysts for ghosting, but what we're seeing is an incredibly sizable increase to application volume that we're dealing with, right? First data is 291 applications per hire, which is up from 100 in 2021. So it's almost 3x. 412 applications per recruiter, which is sizable, and a 56% drop in the recruiting team that we're experiencing across most industries. It's really interesting. And I'll give you, I don't know how you guys are experiencing that, but I'll ask in just a sec. But from my standpoint, I was working with an organization about a month ago, and they hire technologists globally. They had a TA team of 4 people. And in the probably early to mid-June. Their fiscal year ran July 1st to July, a little bit of a different cycle than a calendar. They were asked to reduce their recruiting team in half. They were accelerating. So just to give you an idea, that's from 4 people to 2 people globally. They were increasing their hiring count by 30%, and each recruiter was going to carry north consistently of 100 requisitions per person. 100 requisitions. So now imagine you're that recruiter looking at these numbers and you're sitting with 100 requisitions and you're getting 400 applications coming in per role. Or I'm sorry, 300 applications coming in per role. That's you sitting there looking at 3,000 candidates to evaluate. So from a recruiter standpoint, I can see how ghosting's happening, right? That's a tough without the right technology in place, which you may or may not have, because the other aspect of this specific customer I was working with, they also lost 40% of their budget. So the CFO came in and said, that's great. You're going to get less people. We're hiring more. And you have to pick 3 vendors that need to go away. Right. So crazy. But that was just me. That was just from talking to this company. So I'm sure we've all got our own case studies with this, but more applicants, fewer recruiters, the same amount of 24 hours in a day. And to me, that's where the leak starts. So I don't know, has anyone else experienced anything like this? Well, I'm going to take your silent. Oh, Jennifer coming in?
Yeah, sorry. I would say at our company, the tech positions are definitely the volume is much greater than it used to
Yeah.
be. Um, I would not I would not say it's as high as your numbers indicate for the other roles here.
Yeah, I will say when I pull these numbers and I look at some of the vendor sources to get them, because they are the ones who track them most frequently, it's a blend across a lot of industries, right? So Greenhouse has high volume hiring, they have tech hiring, they have so when you get to a specific industry, and one of the things that makes these numbers tough for me to drill in on is they don't give you the data so you can slice it and dice it the way you want. But on aggregate, I could appreciate you might not be seeing these volumes. Well, so this is one of the areas that I thought applications up, conversations aren't. That was kind of what I was seeing. Um, the next thing I looked at from here was the funnel. And this is the funnel end to end. And so what I looked at was conversion rates. So when somebody views a job to apply, that's about a 6% conversion rate. From that, and this comes from Career Plug, you go from an apply to an interview, that's about 3%. And from an interview to a hire, it's about 27%. And then the other aspect they showed was offer to acceptance. So about 84% of offers being given are accepted. So what this means is 1 in 180 applicants are being hired on average across all industries. And it takes about 20 interviews per hire, which is up from 14 interviews in 2021. So that's just insane. And I can also see where some of the ghosting could happen in this process as well. My experience here, and I've probably shared this story in the past, my son was in a final discussion round with a large financial organization here in Boston that begins with an F, which was also their grade in this process. And he had done the coding challenge, he had done the background screening, he had gone through a number of sessions, and it was the interview virtual. He did not have to go into Boston, where he thought he was actually going to get the job, and they completely ghosted him. No phone call, no email, nothing. And this was on a Friday morning. And so Saturday morning, I came out and he was on the couch because at that time he was living with me, completely devastated, literally in tears, because he internalized the fact that it was ghosted and it was something about him. And what I had to sit down and explain to him is that they were probably hiring, he was a junior developer role. They're probably hiring 10 of them. You were probably 15th in line. The position got filled. The role got closed in the ATS system. Every other person thought every other person got back to all the people who are still in the funnel. They're way overstaffed, overburdened. So they moved on to the next role. Nobody did this on purpose. It's just a sign of a broken process. So don't take it personally. It just happens. And I've had it happen to me, and it's not much fun, but it is a way that I've seen the funnel kind of generate those results when you're moving quick and you're overburdened with requisitions, you don't have a lot of staff. That was a personal impact in my world. So just curious, how do these numbers look? Are they on point? I know, Eric, I know this is some of the stuff you study. What do you think? Does this look, CareerPlug seems to be a good source of data for me, but I'm curious if you guys think this is on point for what you're seeing in the market.
I mean, I would say it's fairly on point. Particularly in the last couple of years, I would say that it has increased as far as the ghosting, the broken aspect of communications. I mean, there's positions that I have applied for and aside from getting the, thank you for applying, and then you never hear anything from them, right? So those jobs, either they're not being closed in the ATS properly, or in many cases, because the quantity is so much that depending on the ATS, you could probably have it so that it closes out, but no email is being sent out saying, thank you, the position has been closed, it's been filled, whatever the case might be. And of course, it does get more frustrating as an applicant and as a recruiter, if you're having 100 requisitions, not even half of that is just crazy. Anything above 20 to 30 requisitions, depending on the complexity, as a recruiter, you are struggling, to say the least.
Yeah, I mean, that is definitely something that I've seen. So on the applicant side, that lack of communication and clarity is creating that fear that you're not being seen. So you're leveraging all the AI tools to optimize your resume to make it as strong as possible to pass ATS screening. I did, by the way, in preparation for this, I did sign up for Jack and Jill and AI Jobs and another service that is catering, to me, is kind of catering to that fear that I'm not going to be screened and I'm not going to be seen and I'm going to go into this resume black hole. And it's really interesting to me. But on the other side, you have a lot of recruiters that are using screening technologies today to look at that influx of resumes, do first level contacts, and give me qualified people back, AI screening. So there's kind of a bot on bot conflict happening right there where people are employing as much AI as they can to kind of fight each other because of the volume challenges that are happening. So really interesting. All right, so final point of this process is this is benchmark. This comes from iCIMS and PIN, and this is where data actually leaks, right? So this is where I saw the total candidate drop off by stage. So at the application stage, 14%. There's a number of stages throughout the process, loops that we go through, 16%, onboarding, 18%, scheduling, 20%. And the largest share of candidate drop-off was the interview stage. So 72% of candidates in active conversations are getting 30 plus days of recruiter silence, sometimes up to 75 days, which is obviously, I don't know, in my book, that would be the definition of ghosting, right? If you're waiting a month to hear back, it's kind of crazy. And almost 50% of candidates who reply stay stuck. No interview offer, no rejection, nothing. And like in my world, over the last 6 weeks, the company I work for shut down all their new business sales team. And myself, everybody, we got laid off. Which happens, it's turnaround. I knew it going in, so not a big deal. But I've reached out to a couple organizations and applied for roles. And I will say, in two situations, I've had conversations with hiring managers in the TA team, and I'm in that 30 to 70 day window where it's just nothing. And so that's really challenging. I kind of understand it and appreciate what's going on, so I'm not upset by it. But it's still as frustrating to me as anybody else. And I can imagine if people aren't aware of the TA process, they're taking it personally. Like I harken back to what my son experienced. And that's a tough place to be. So I can see where the leakage of the data and the impact of this really takes effect. So I'm going to stop here. Does 32% of the drop-off stage match what you're seeing in your own funnel? And where do you guys see drop off right now? So I'm curious from us as employers or you as employers looking at candidates, where do you see a lot of the ghosting happening from the candidate side? I mean, Jennifer, in your world in the technical roles, do you see it at any particular point?
I guess I'm going to again, we don't do we hire a lot of people at this company because we're growing, but we don't do high volume recruiting. So I guess I need to make the differentiation there.
Yeah.
We are a we're technically considered a financial services firm because nobody has tax in terms of the industry categorization. We're a corporate tax firm. So we have specific types of backgrounds we're looking for if we're looking for the experienced hire side. So I would not necessarily at all agree with that drop off for us, but I
Yeah.
can definitely see that would be going on, I guess, nationwide, probably, to be very honest with you. But I think because we have such a specific need for what we look for on my side that I don't have the luxury of not getting back to people. I have to because it's going to tarnish our reputation.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that is a whole part that I didn't dig into, which was the employer branding side of what
Right.
ghosting does. Only because I think that could be a conversation unto itself.
Right.
Um,
I agree.
but I can tell you to finish that story with my son is a avid gamer and developer. So he runs his own servers that run games that he likes to play, and he works with people. I don't know, in my brain, I see them all in their early 20s, but I'm sure it's a much wider age range. I just see them all looking like him. But I will tell you, he was on a server Saturday night, which was one of their big gaming nights, talking to a couple hundred people with headphones on, but I could hear what they were saying because the speakers were on. And it was a couple hundred developers across this nation tearing that company up after he shared what they did. I mean, just an employer branding. Like I almost wish I could have recorded it and sent it to the head of HR for Fidelity and say, this is what ghosting does when you do what you just did. Because these are hundreds of developers across the country having a field day on this one story. I'm sure there's some really valid reasons for why it happened, but it doesn't diminish the impact it has on your employer brand. So that was really interesting when it happened. Anyone else have any candidate ghosting experiences that kind of tie back to points in your process?
Yeah, Bill, it's Allison Becker. Hi.
How are you?
We are seeing a lot of drop off when we reach out for interviews, which is really interesting. Time and time again, I give people the benefit of the doubt that it could be going into their spam, but certainly not as much as what we're seeing back. So I don't know if anybody else is experiencing that, but in this day and age, you'd think people want to take an interview, but it's hard to get hold of some people.
It's really interesting. We had a conversation in a session a couple months ago, and we were talking about some places where people were reaching out for interviews and getting ghosted. And then a week or a couple weeks later, that same applicant was applying for more jobs. And the question was, well, why would you apply for a job, then not show up for the interview and then apply for more jobs? And I think the answer is that they're not applying for the jobs. They're using Jack and Jill or AI jobs or whatever. Because what I experienced is just in 45 minutes of signing up for these services and loading a resume just to test what they would do, I probably could have applied. Jack and Jill would have applied me for 25 jobs this morning. AI jobs would have had me running against like probably hundreds of jobs, depending on the criteria and I mean, there's levers you can pull on how much you want to get paid and seniority and things like that. But at the end of the day, they're out there cranking away. And you may or may not know what's happening from that activity. So I could definitely see that being a point of candidate ghosting because God only knows where they are in their journey, if they're already in a deep conversation with somebody, and these systems are still out there applying and applying and applying for jobs for you. So that is one of the catalysts I see in the market, but mail delivery, all those other things I'm sure impact it.
Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. Anyone else?
I have a similar experience when it comes to, I think we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. We do like the digital interviews.
Yeah.
So we'll invite candidates to complete digital interview. We use HireVue. We tend to see a little bit of drop off there. Sometimes, kind of like Allison was saying, it might go into their spam. But sometimes people receive it and they just are not interested in completing a digital interview. If they feel that if that's the type of modality that you want to use, I'm not really interested in that. I'd rather meet someone in person. Yeah, of course, we'd love to meet everybody in person. We just don't have the capacity for that. But I've heard some feedback that some of them just don't want to do that type of interview style.
It's funny. It's really interesting. I think that's a good call out that some people struggle with the virtual aspect of interviews, but depending on the industry, I could definitely see where, a senior level developer that Jennifer's looking at that has 25 years of experience might be taken back a little bit and expect a more personal approach. But for a lot of jobs out there, I think the virtual aspect is a great screening mechanism to go back and say, hey, look, we do see you. We only have so much bandwidth and we want to learn more about you. This is the modality we're using to understand more about you. But I could see where people could take that the wrong way. By the way, Rachel, I know, are you in the Tampa Bay area? Oh, you're still on mute.
Sorry about that. I'm not far from Tampa. I'm in Orlando.
Oh, okay. Well, there's actually an event tonight that Talk is putting on if you're interested. Little side note, I'm
Oh,
doing a little promotional PR, but we've got about 20, 25 people going. It could be a great opportunity. Just wanted to make you aware of it. Could be a fun thing to go check out.
thank you so much, Bill. I appreciate that. Thank
You're
you.
Hey,
welcome.
Bill, is that on the website? Can you just, is that possible to display where that is? I just want to
Yeah,
see that.
I'm gonna drop the link to it in chat in just a second. My my ADHD when I do try and do multiple things takes over, and I have to go slow, or I'll send you the link to God knows what, and you'll be like, wait, that's not a talk event. And I'll be like, no, that's the job I was just looking at. So, anyways, it's in chat. So if Rachel, if that's something's fun, go check it out.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so I'm going to jump now to the next area, which I think sometimes creates the ghosting aspect because of the expectations of the client. And this is speed and time of first touch. And so this information came from PIN. Um, while I have nothing to do with PIN, Steve and the team in New York that built that for a sourcing platform, I like what they do. So unbeknownst, just if you're looking for a sourcing tool, I definitely check them out. I think they do exceptionally well up against Juicebox, from my own personal opinion, but this is some of their data. And this is how fast candidates reply once a recruiter reaches out. And so about 26% um, within 24 hours, 34 and a half at 48. And so you can see more and more how that goes. But 72% of active candidates wait 30 plus days for a reply back. And contacting a lead within 5 minutes versus 30 makes reps 100 times more likely to connect. So that comes from a little bit of my sales background. I look at these geeky, like inside sales lead response stuff. But obviously, having mechanisms in place and probably not human, but more automated processes to get back to people quickly is really effective in creating connectivity. The challenge, and I don't know if you guys realize this, but the average ATS auto reply has between a 5 to 6 out of 10 delivery rate. So out of 10 great applicants that apply to your role, best case scenario, 6 of them get the response email back. And the reason is because the way the emails are formatted, a lot of HTML, a lot of links, the do not reply at whatever, and some of the other characteristics of the email cause most particularly Google to consider them spam. So they don't make it to the applicant. And that, well, that's about 18 or 24 months old data. I still believe it to be very relevant. And I will say that uh, in creating some of the new email category capabilities for Talk as I improve the platform, I was surprised how quickly we ended up in spam on Google from a high reputation URL like Talk Talent, which we're not marketing or spamming, or we're just sending out hopefully meaningful content, and we're ending up in spam. So that's a really interesting aspect of that. The other part of this that I thought was pretty cool was, hang on one sec, um, what actually moved the needle. So, teams combining these levers increase the reply rate, right? So what we're trying to do is get back to the applicants that the premise, applicant applies, we want to get back to them and make that connectivity and bring them into the loop so we can avoid the ghosting and people disappearing. So tighter targeting, right? So fewer sends, better match candidates, right? So if you got 300 applicants per role, going back to Eric, what you said, you can only look at 25 of them. If something could show you, or if you have the time to invest and find those 25 that are the top applicants, you're going to get great connectivity and better match people. Multi-channel sequencing, email, LinkedIn, SMS spaced over days. That's not easy to do as well, depending on the ATS system or third-party tool you may have. You can automate that, but that also mitigates some of the risks around email only. SMS, when I evaluated that in the past, had a 99.1% open rate. not delivery rate, open rate from delivered text. So if you were looking for the highest probability method to connect with an applicant, an SMS is a great way of doing it. You would just have to somehow during the application process gain their approval to send that text to them. It's kind of an opt-in model. The time optimization is great. If somebody is, depending on the scale of your hiring, making sure you're getting things to people when they can see it. First line personalization, value first messaging, and structured follow-up cadence all do a great job on the other side. The aggregate between them is like 30 to 50% increase. I will tell you from a sales standpoint, doing that for a long time, hyper personalization and only one point of the outreach going to the structured cadence. Like if you send somebody an email with bullets and a ton of verbiage, I will tell you I'm not going to read it. But if you send me a simple email with a clear point that's personalized to me, I'm going to look at it. I'll give you an example of this. I got an email the other day to join a veteran stock trading group, which I had no interest, wasn't looking for, but the subject line was very well targeted. They knew what I did in the military and how long I'd served, and they asked for one simple call out, which is to join a WhatsApp group. I thought that was great. I was like, you know what? I might go look at that. Only because I could digest it and understand it in 15, 20 seconds it took me to read it. I think applicants from just like consumers looking to buy things operate in the same model. So, I don't know. Has anyone used any of this or started to bring in kind of a little bit of a more of a marketing approach to connectivity in terms of how you engage with the applicants? I think it's a little more on a volume game as well, but Jennifer, it sounds like you're already doing this because you're going specifically and building meaningful relationships. So I think you are doing it, but I'm wondering if anyone else has tried to integrate any of these things into their processes. Well, here's some data and some abilities to look at it. And again, the sources will be in the back of the deck if you want to go look at it. But I thought it was really interesting stuff in terms of what is making differences in the connectivity. So really, the question I wanted to ask from this, and kind of what I just asked, do those levers look realistic? Meaning, could you do any of them? And depending on the scope and the workload you're under, maybe you can or cannot. And is there anything you guys are doing to improve connectivity with applicants?
I'll just say that, previously I would say that again, personalizing the message was extremely helpful, not just by first name, but also the actual, let's say, introduction. Not too long, relevant. Don't make it so generic that it could apply to multiple people. So that tends to help a lot. Now, I will say, I don't know if the group over here has experienced, but I have been getting many emails, and it's usually through Gmail, and they'll make up some name. So it might be like Eric DeMonte HR at Gmail. So they're creating all these new emails. It is very specific. They obviously have gone to a LinkedIn profile, and it is already pulling things from my work experience and making it out to saying it's like, well, based on your experience here and there, we're very interested to talk to you. They even will put a known company name as well, saying, I'm an executive recruiter for Korn Ferry, actual email, by the way, and but the person's using a Gmail address or whoever it is. So it does become now a lot more difficult to trust, or you got to be double checking, triple checking what is it that you are actually receiving. Because from that perspective now, it's like, now I check everything.
Yeah.
I've even gone as far, like in some cases where it's like, hey, was this you, like contacting them through LinkedIn? And say, no, that's not me. It's like, so
Yeah, there are two examples I've been hit with in the last probably 90 days where I get outreach from recruiters that I can find on LinkedIn, and they are asking me if I'd be interested in a job that would be relevant for my background, go to market in TA. And if I say yes, they'll ask me for a resume. And then they'll come back and tell me my resume needs to be improved. And they want to refer me to a resume approval service, and it's $2.99 or $3.99 to get my resume updated. So it's a little bit of a scam. I actually ran one and reported to LinkedIn because there's a profile on LinkedIn, and there's a lot of articles on Reddit and Quora about this persona reaching out and being a fake recruiter and just trying to get you to spend money. But the key, and Eric, I think you nailed it, is I think they use AI to build hyper-specific emails to go out via Gmail. So you get an email like, hey, I love what you did here, here, and here. I looked at your LinkedIn profile. I think you'd be a great fit for this role. And I would be. And the other thing that's interesting is the roles don't exist. So that was the other thing I went and did. I started looking at some of the roles that they were recommending I apply for, and they are not on the websites.
they will usually put, I'm doing a confidential search,
Yes. Yeah, I
confidential
have seen
executive search.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah, they have said that. Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. All right. So, do you have a data point, Rachel?
Yeah, I was just gonna add that as far as with the ghosting, it's kind of hard with the TA team because a lot of times as recruiters, you kind of get a bad rap that like we're not connecting with the candidates, but we really can only go as fast as the hiring managers go and provide us updates. I would love to update the candidates, but if hiring managers haven't completed an interview or haven't taken the time to review, there's really only so much I can update the candidate. So I really try to uh, let them know, like, just touch points like you're still under consideration, you're still under review. But one thing that has really helped with getting back to the candidates a lot faster is when candidates reach out with updates, I've actually started forwarding those emails to the hiring managers and really kind of like putting that human element. Because when I tell the hiring managers, hey, candidates are reaching out for updates, it's kind of like, oh, okay. But the moment I send them like, hey, Bob Smith, here's his email, then they do tend to move a little quicker because they're realizing, wow, like people are actually wanting updates. So that's just one thing that has helped helped our team to kind of speed up those touches with the candidates.
That's a great idea. I mean, definitely making the hiring manager aware that, hey, you are the bottleneck. Um, I love that. That's a great idea. I think that's a good call out. I was trying to find it was a woman's name that reached out to me about that role. I was going to share with you her name so you could go look at it because it was a great call out for the scamming stuff, but I can't find it easily, so I'll let it go. Awesome. So I'm going to just jump to this I thought was interesting, and this was making it a metric, or the metric that most teams don't track. Um, from what I saw, that time to first touch is something that is not really being tracked on a regular basis. It's not on a dashboard. It's not sitting next to time to fill or cost per hire. But I think that it absolutely is a metric that needs to be tracked. Rachel, going back to your standpoint, people don't realize that they may be the bottleneck and they're causing this time to fill to explode. So reporting it and being able to track it is important. Being able to go back and say to the HR team or in a budgetary cycle, say, hey, we need to go get something to help us do this because based on I'll go back to that tech team I was talking about. They went from 4 people to 2. They're carrying over 100 recs and they just lost 40% of their budget. What do you think that's going to do to their time to first touch? It's going to kill it, right? So if they were tracking that, they could go back and say, hey, we did what you asked. Understand what the impact it's having on our business because we're trying to hire more people. It's a really interesting thing. So obviously we got the rise in the applications. The open requisitions carry per recruiter on average 13. I think that's low, by the way. I think it's more than 13.4 personally. And the recruiters per team is 4.6, which, is depending on the size of the company is really interesting. But I think the aggregate, rather than the physical number, is that recruiting teams in general are reduced in size a little more than half over the last couple of years. So volume's up, headcount's down, and first touch is a casualty. Even if your system's automated to doing it, I'll go back to that example, only 6 out of 10 are getting that email, best case, on average, because they're going into spam. So I think this is a metric that's really interesting and worth tracking. I think the next thing, and this is, again, bear with me because, outside of recruiting, I am a sales guy. I'm borrowing this from a sales playbook. Like if you don't measure it, it's not, you measure it to improve it, right? So track the median, and understand what it takes to get the first touch. And for me, I always set a standard, and I'll be clear, I don't set a standard from a punitive standpoint. I always set estimates of time so we can understand, are they achievable? If they are not, what is achievable? Or what do we need to do to make it a realistic number, right? So if my time to first touch is 24 hours after apply or 72 hours after apply for qualified candidates, then I want to measure how many times that's happening. And I want to understand what's causing it to not happen. If I think that is a realistic expectation of our team or a criteria for success of hiring A-player technical resources, how am I going to make that, a process that's consistent? This is from my experience, sales treats 5 minutes as the line for hot lead. TA equivalent might be a business day or a firm 48-hour ceiling, right? So if I'm running a sales team and I get an inbound request and I sit on that request for 48 hours, the person who requested it is on to 1,000 other things. And the probability of them responding to it from a sales standpoint gets exponentially smaller, right? The thing I always tell people is inbound leads atrophy in a matter of minutes. Speed matters in that instance. Now, it's probably not the same velocity that you need to go at for recruiting, but you still have to have a velocity. And then the other thing is staff to it. So, treat first touch coverage like phone coverage, like who's going to do it? How's it going to get done? If I'm out for a week as we take vacations, who's going to do it? Because the impact is tough. And, going back to the employer brand aspect, those things take on lives of their own. I'm sure somewhere in the ethers of people who play, I think the game was called Arma. My Boston accent almost came out wicked when I just said Arma. So yeah, my son plays the game Arma. There is an ah in there. And I'm sure somewhere there's somebody still talking about how horrible fidelity is to apply for. But anyways, this is to close with 80% of leads decay within 5 minutes of contact. So while that's sales, I think there's a lot of similarity between talent acquisition and sales in terms of interacting with applicants to fill key roles. They are hot leads and we want to treat them with speed and respect. And so I think that's really an interesting aspect. So making it a metric is important so you can understand what's impacting it and what's achievable. But then thinking about how to make it fast creates a connectivity quickly and eliminates, with the right applicant, a ghosting challenge, right? If I apply for a job and I'm a great fit and somebody gets back to me quickly, I'm excited. I talked to a guy last Friday. He said, "Oh my God, you'd be a great fit. I'll give me the weekend to think about it and I'll get in touch with you Monday." Today's Thursday. I've heard nothing. That's already off my radar. Even if he reached out, my brain is thinking, this is me, by the way. I'm not saying so. This is just me. My brain is thinking, if that's how you treat me as a high quality applicant, I can only imagine what working for you is like. So I'm not going to be that excited to go there. It's really interesting. Um, a funny other side note out of the metrics and tracking time to first touch. I don't know if any of you follow OFCCP or EEOC or any of that, but Executive Order 11246, which is signed into law in 1962 by Lyndon B. Johnson, was completely shut off late last week. And the governance of EEOC has basically flipped rather than and I have a whole article I'll publish on Monday about this in my newsletter. I spent a lot of because I geek out on this stuff. But basically now, instead of watching federal employers and contractors and subcontractors to make sure they have fair, equitable diversity hiring rules, that's what OFCCP was there to enforce. It's now there's a new executive order out, 12406, I think, that actually looks for people doing it to penalize them. The side aspect of it is the thing that they are going to look at is fair and consistent care and treatment of applicants. Right. So that is the thing that is still in there, that if somebody raises their hand and say, "Hey, I'm Bill, I applied for a job that I was exceptionally well qualified for, and you hired John over there because he's 20 and I'm 21, kidding." The employer in the past would have a lot that have to do under equal opportunity. Today, they basically just need to show that they have a process around treating everyone fair and consistently and talking to them all the same. That was only one of the positive wins I saw out of, but yeah, EEOC and OFCCP is officially over. And affirmative action. So, and the new bylaws, you will get penalized if you have programs in place if you're doing it, which was, I thought, were a really interesting change of perspective. But that could be its own webinar unto itself. So should this be on your dashboard? I think so. I think it's something we should track, but I don't know. I'm from a KPI standpoint, what are some of the metrics you guys do track?
Hey, it's Allison again. Certainly time to fill, quality of hire, retention. I think that's a big one. If you're in a company where there's a lot of turnover, you want to take a look at the whys behind it. And I think that more and more we're looking at that, but those are primarily the big ones. Certainly how many interviews you've got, what the acceptance rates are, things like that. Those are standard.
Sure. Yeah. Those make sense. I think that the second question I was thinking, if I was going to add this tomorrow, I would think this would almost be something the ATS should just be tracking. It seems like that's a logical thing for an ATS to say is, you had 100 people apply. You got back to 50 of them in 24 hours and 50 of them in 72 hours. And here's the percentage of performance of those, get whatever whatever you wanted to get into your funnel. You had a higher percentage of people, whatever that looked like. Did you talk to people in 24 hours? Did you get more? Was it better? Like, just so you can frame that out and build processes based on data that generate the results you want. So That was what I walked away from that with in terms of how I should look at it. I don't think recruiters or coordinators, when it comes to a metric that applies to a systematic interaction, I think it belongs in a system. The system, I think it should be sitting in as the ATS.
Playing devil's advocate over here, when you do have the high level of numbers of applicants, right? And you do have numerous requisitions that you're working on. The perhaps more efficient way might be that it's like, okay, I'm going to let this run for another week or so because I still have another 15 or 20 recs that I'm still working on. And then from there, look at the candidate pool versus, okay, this is, after day one, I've had 50, 100 applicants and so forth. So it's a little bit of a different way that perhaps, and I know that I've done it at times because it's like, okay, I'm working on these other things. It's like, I know that that sometimes, and at least maybe years ago, not everybody applied within the first 24 hours or
Yeah.
48. So you're saying it's like, okay, if it's a good candidate, they're probably working. They may not have time to apply, but maybe on the weekend they kind of do. So that could be a few days before the weekend. So there was a little bit of that going on. So while I do like the tracking, the time to first touch, there could be reasons why it does get delayed.
Absolutely. I think that comes, and I agree with you 100%. I think it really comes down to setting the bar around what are we measuring? Is it from the date they apply till we talk to them? Or is it from the time we review and know they're qualified till we reach out? Like I think there's some unique aspects that each employer should or TA team should be thinking about to make it a relevant KPI for them. 100%. I hear what you're saying. All right. Oh, go ahead, Rachel.
I was just going to say too that I also think that there should be a focus on, I guess in our world, right? Like a focus on still treating a candidate that's not necessarily highly qualified in the same way with just as much respect and attention because so I work in a college, there's just such a diversity of roles. So even if that person is not the best in this pool, they may be top in another
Yeah.
position. So still kind of like not necessarily like, yes, we want to put our attention to the highly qualified, but that person, it's so interesting how that person's not qualified here, but highly qualified in this position. But kind of like how I think it was Jennifer was saying, like your reputation is so important. So if I don't treat you the best in this position, I could lose you for now this other role.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really, I mean, from my standpoint personally, similar to yours, I have a sales role or anything in a go-to-market function. I get a lot of people who apply with unique aspects of their background where I may be looking to hire 5 salespeople and 5 account managers. And I have somebody who applied for a sales manager role. Great. I don't think you're a great fit for the role, but I think you'd be a phenomenal account manager. You know the industry, you're people centric. So I think the relationship I want to create is that I value the fact that you raised your hand and showed interest in me as an employer. And I'm going to reward that with coming back and giving you, good feedback, clear communication. And if there's a fit, then I want to communicate it. If not, I want to build a relationship for further down the road because you never know where people are going to be in their career. All right. How are we doing? I've got 6 minutes left. So closing thoughts. This is volume versus personalization. This is from data I saw out there in a couple different places. But on average, we're getting 250 applications. So what's safe to automate? Resume screenings, interview scheduling, status updates, stuff like that. The things to keep human, which I honestly, I saw the data coming out of the LinkedIn study and I was kind of like, that's pretty You had to study that to get to that. But just for me, I was like, no kidding, really? So, keep relationships building with finalists, bias and fairness checks, and compensation conversations, right? I think all of those were pretty darn self-evident. But I think, in everything that I try and do, I try and always keep it personal and conversational. Even if it's not the news somebody may want to hear, I want to be considerate and compassionate as I'm delivering it because, Rachel, like you said, you just never know. And you want to build a good employer brand relationship with that person, even if you're not going to hire them. So I saw that, and then the final thing was, automation that still feels human. Um, you know, I, this came from Spectraforce. I think part of what I was walking away with here is that personalization makes a big difference, even if it's automated. Eric, you and I have fallen victim for good personalization for scammy emails. I mean, because I stopped and read it. I was like, huh, you know, um, but it makes a difference, and it's really good to call that stuff out. And some of the tools that are coming onto the market that have an MCP of Claude or Perplexity or OpenAI can make that personalization capability really achievable and very consistent. So, and I'm sure that a lot of AI platforms or AI platforms, a lot of ATS platforms that are bringing that AI into it or creating that capability to do this. So,
I mean,
uh,
LinkedIn was doing that as well too a while ago.
yeah, LinkedIn is building some really interesting bot capabilities to layer onto their platform for both sales and for recruiting to be hyper personal and go out and do outreach and kind of BDR, SDR work on behalf of a sales team or a recruitment sourcing type of focus for a TA team, where you could kind of go in and say, this is who I need. And the bot starts going out and talking to people on LinkedIn to see if they're interested and then building you your funnel on your own. God knows what they're going to charge for it, but they are doing it. Knowing LinkedIn probably be free. I'm kidding. All right, so we only have a couple minutes left, so I just want to end. This is from me. This is what I took away from the data I found. Interview scheduling and staging, benchmark it. Make sure you time things. Make sure metrics have an owner. And then automate the repetitive as best we can, right? This is what the data and the research I found showed me. I thought it was really interesting, and hopefully there was some good data in there for you as well. But I always love digging into these problems and seeing what some of the organizations are talking about. Um, the only caveat I ever have when I do these types of exercises for myself is that most of the data that's available is vendor generated. And I always step back and try and think, what is the view of the data that they captured proving a point or creating a need for selling their product? Sometimes it's both, but I always like to question that when I'm looking at that stuff. I actually kind of wrote about that last week in terms of, are vendors solving problems, or are they just capitalizing on data trends that make their product look amazing? So you never know, but it's part of what the due diligence process is all about. So I really appreciate it. Hopefully that was a good use of time, and I will put the recording up on the new platform. The presentation will be up there. These are all the data sources I use, so you'll have access to it. These are all links, so you can go out and look at any of them. If anybody has any trouble sleeping tonight, I've got you, and I will put you to sleep with this data instantly. So feel free to go look at it. And I really appreciate everybody making time to be here today, and hopefully we'll see you again soon.
Thank
Sounds
you
good.
very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
Bill,
you.
Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you.
hey Bill,
Bye.
I don't know if anybody else has this challenge, but the talk activity email,
Yes.
at least the one that went out today, I click on the links and it's giving me a check if there's a typo, if What the site can't be reached.
Good to know. I will fix that. I will go check and fix that right now.
Yeah.
That's
There's a
one of the
typo.
joys of being your own developer is I make all the mistakes, but I also get to fix them all.
Fair enough. So,
All right. Eric, you run into anything else? I hugely value this feedback because the more I get, the better I can make it. So anything else, please let me know. I love it.
no problem. All right. Well,
All right.
bye everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Rachel,
Bye.
go tonight. Free drinks.
Go to Tampa.
Yeah. Free
Thanks,
drinks.
Bill. Take
All right, bye.
care. Bye.